Good morning. It's April 14th, and today we're in Luke chapter 16, and there's an interesting story here at the last part of Luke 16. It's something like a parable. It's not called a parable, and there's some important differences between this and the normal parables. There is no other parable, for instance, that names any of its characters, and this one has both Abraham and Lazarus named and participating in the story here. So it doesn't look like it's a parable, but it is an interesting and I think extremely important little story, partly because it helps us to understand the rejection that humanity in general struggles with in its relationship with God. And so it talks about the rich man and Lazarus after they've died, and the rich man asks for Abraham to send Lazarus over to dip his finger into water and cool water and bring it to him to cool his tongue in the fire. And very interesting. I don't know that it's meant to teach anything about how the afterlife works, about heaven and hell, or about the proximity of those things, or the possibility even of somebody actually physically doing something like this. I don't think it's meant to teach that, so I don't think we should use it for those purposes. But certainly, what it is meant to teach, I think, is in the end of it. It says, um, the very last verse, I think, is the interpretive key to it. He said to him, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead." And so Jesus is certainly prefiguring his own death and resurrection, and he's showing that belief isn't really based on facts or miracles or observances. It's actually a faith-based thing. So salvation comes not by seeing things or even knowing them to be true, but by faith obedience to God, to react to Him in faith and obedience. And it doesn't matter what somebody might see. There's not going to be anything that's going to convince them to change their minds. Even Revelation talks about this with people who see that God is bringing judgment upon them. They know that it's God bringing judgment, and yet they refuse to acknowledge Him. They refuse to bend their knee to Him too. So that's the primary issue with humanity. It's not a lack of evidence, it's a lack of faith, it's a lack of obedience, a rejection of the authority of God ultimately, that leads to separation from Him for all eternity. So I think that's an important piece of the puzzle for us in understanding why some people go to hell. It's because of their own choice to reject what God has given to them in terms of revelation.